Hello and welcome everyone to our fourth Northwest Women of Today workshop. As most of you will know by now, the theme behind our workshops has been about confident building and assertiveness. This is my opportunity to step forward out of my comfort zone and chair a meeting for the first time. So please excuse me if I get anything wrong or if it doesn't go to plan. All we can do is laugh and move on. Now, today's workshop is based on proportionality and where we are today. We have a great lineup and for you. First, we have Katie Dunning, who has worked hard for many years collecting the data and putting it together in the form of a proportionality and representation report. And she's going to share her findings with us. Now listen carefully, because Karen Kendrick's going to be quizzing you all after this on the numbers. And then we have Kerry Fleck, who has worked tirelessly as a field organiser for the CWU and has produced a women's places in her union. Proportionality reflects our voice and how loud our voice is. The louder our voice becomes, the more it can be heard. The more our voice can be heard, the more we can overcome adversity and stand together equal in society and the workplace. So add your voice to ours and we can achieve anything. And with that, I'd like to pass you over to Katie, for Katie to say a proportionality report.
I think Karen unmuted me and I just muted myself. That was a very good, was it? Well done, Sheila, for that introduction. That was a great introduction.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. For this session, I want to talk about proportionality, in particular what it is, why it's important, and what we're doing as a trade union to address proportionality and representation in the CWU. I'm also going to be throwing in some answers for Karen's quiz. So if you're competitive, make sure that you're listening carefully and hopefully you'll get, how about how many questions are? What was it? 8 out of 8. You'll get 8 out of 8. So let's talk about proportionality. What is it? So proportionality and representation can mean many different things to different people. For example, if I was to just Google proportionality and representation in a search engine, I more than likely would see streams and streams of literature about electoral systems and voting methods. But when we, the CWU, talk about proportionality and representation, what we're actually talking about is making our representative structures, so our reps and our officers, more reflective of our diverse membership. So that when we think about a typical CWU rep, we don't automatically envisage a certain image. And some of those images have been described by feminists as being pow, mal, and style. But the image of a trade union is not the sole reason why we need more diverse members coming forward and becoming more active in trade union activity. There's an economic and a social justice need as well. Over the last 40 years, the world of work, as we know, has changed dramatically. Not only have we seen our industries change, we've seen our workplaces change, new technologies, which have all brought in their own set of challenges for all workers, but women's contribution to the labour market has increased dramatically. Today, figures from the Office of National Statistics illustrate that the UK workforce is more gender diverse than it's ever been before. Women employment has now climbed to a record high of 73%. Although feminists from the 60s would argue this is a great thing, inequalities have concentrated women to the bottom of the labour value chain. So women are more likely to be underrepresented in high-ranking positions and overrepresented in low-skilled, low-paid, part-time, precarious, insecure forms of employment. And often women are forced into jobs below their skills and abilities because they're saddled with childcare responsibilities, caring responsibilities, and domestic chores. Therefore, it's no real surprise to know that out of the top 250 companies in the UK, only 8 women hold CEO positions. And despite equal pay legislation being enshrined in law since the 1970s, overall, women still only earn 83p for every pound that a man earns. So that means there's a gender pay gap in the UK of 17%. A lack of women economic equality also means that some women continue to face discrimination in the workplace, maternity discrimination, sexual harassment, and many employers fail to introduce or implement policies that address women's needs at work and their health issues. For example, flexible working. Menopause, I know Vera's been campaigning for years to get menopause policies in the workplace, and domestic violence. These injustices lead women to join trade unions, and what we've seen over the past few years is more women joining the trade union movement. In a recent BIS report, the proportion of women employees who are members of trade unions increased to 27%, and we've seen similar trends of that in our own union. So today, in the CWU, 1 in 5 members of the CWU are women. So that's 20%. 20% of our membership are women members. However, despite that statistic, out of just nearly 4,000 representatives, women only account for 13.6%. So we can see we're not proportionate in terms of proportionate and representation for gender. This is the same for BAME women, who make up for 2% of our total CWU membership. There's just over 4,000 BAME women who are members of the CWU. Despite that, only 45 are active. As a union, we recognise that we're not unleashing the potential of our women members, as well as other underrepresented groups such as LGBT, our disabled members, and LGBT, and BAME. Sorry. We know that if we want to make our workplaces and society more fair, more equal, more driven by diversity, then we all need to be involved in how we shape our future, how we shape our workplaces, and how we shape our standards of living. This includes BAME women, disabled women, women from LGBT communities. For us as a trade union, this means going back to grassroots, going into the workplaces, engaging with our members, listening to women's experiences and other underrepresented groups, learning about what's important to them and understanding their concerns. These voices is bread and butter stuff, it's our grassroots. And as a union, we need to address those concerns and those issues and consistently keep addressing them. And it shouldn't be just the job of the equality strand. This has to be a whole union effort. Women's issues are never going to be addressed if we're not talking to one another, and they're never going to be addressed if women aren't in the room. It's just not going to happen. So we need events like today, like what the Northwest region have just putting on, so that it allows us to talk. And we need women at the table, because ultimately it's going to be women that take those issues to the table, where the men are, where we can discuss those issues and address them equally. We want to see proportionality and representation on every agenda of this union, at every level and every section. Another part, that is part of our strategy, and that's what we'll continue to do. COVID has hindered some of the stuff that we wanted to do in the workplace, but we are committed to that work, and as soon as it's safe to do so, we'll be coming into the workplaces to engage with our members. Another part of the strategy is to improve the way we record and monitor women's involvement, so that we can zone in and identify possible areas where we need to improve and where the ladder's broken. We can then look to identify what those barriers are and remove them through forms of positive action. And we've already started this process, as Karen said in the introduction. There's been the Proportionality and Representation report has already been published in LTV 396. But there's gaps in that data. So we've got a body of work we need to do to address that. We need to ensure that our members know how important it is to declare their diversity data and encourage them to do so. But equally, we need branches to make sure that that data is kept up to date and it's accurate, especially for reps positions. This is a whole raft of area where we're looking to start doing some work in the new year once COVID restrictions allow us to do so. So I'm a bit conscious of time, because I know I should have only had 10 minutes, but I just want to end on this note. Proportionality is not just an issue for the equality strand. We're mainstreamed now. It's not just the Equality and Education's Department's issue. It's not just a headquarters issue or a regional issue. It's for every member, every rep, every officer to deal with. Over the next 2 years, we want to work within our new structures that was brought in under redesign, mainstream our proportionality work through doing that, through having it on agendas, on every agenda, and making sure that everyone is talking about proportionality and those issues are coming through. Only then will we be able to create change, and only then will we be able to achieve a new deal for workers. Thanks, Karen.
Oh, thanks for that. Thanks for that, Katie. Hang on a sec. Where have you gone, Sheila?
I'm here.
Yeah, you're still there. Good. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Right.
Thank you for that, Katie. And hopefully we can get the conversation started. I'm going to pass over now. Oh, before I forget, don't if you want to ask any questions, would you put them in the chat, and then I'll bring you in later on at the end. So I'll pass over to you now, Karen, so you can start the quiz.
Okay, thanks for that, Sheila. Just to let you know, I know Tana's having problems hearing at the moment. Can you hear me, Tana? Yeah, she's having difficulty. I think her sound might be slightly off a little bit. But I know she's listening, you know, to us. It could be the signal, it could be actually the transmission of it and the broadband that's causing a problem. So if you see Tana leaning in like that, it's not that she can't see us, it's the fact she's trying to hear us. Okay, so hopefully she's going to be okay with that. Right, now we're going to try something we've not done before, and this is, I'm going to put up some questions on the screen, and hopefully what happens is you will get a multiple choice answer. Okay, now we're not going into breakout rooms, we're not breaking up to do this at all. I'm just going to put it on the screen, and hopefully what you'll do is go in, answer what you think is right. Some of the answers were mentioned earlier on. Some people might have seen me going like that, right? Just to give you a hint or two. And then what I'll do is in about, what were we on now? We're on about 20 past at the moment. So I'm thinking about 10 minutes, right? And just have a look. There's only 8 questions. I don't think it'll need 10 minutes, but I'm going to bring them up now. Just checking the chat. Somebody just popped something in the chat. So where's my chat gone? Okay. Okay. Oh, it's there. From Mel. Mel thought I was joking. Yeah, okay. Susie, yes, I'm sure she will bring you in later on. So yeah, polls. So I'm going to try this poll now. It is new. Now, Karen's gone sideways again. She does that so often. I don't know why she likes that. So fingers crossed, as Katie's just gone there, and see what you can do with these. Can everybody see that? Yeah. Okay. Have you got little boxes that you can, like little circles where you can press on your answers? Just go down, scroll through, and pop your answers in there. Some of you should know the answers, Katie done, you know. Some of them might guess.
I'm not going to play because
they're all anonymous, by the way, just so you know. I have not, nobody's name will be next to an answer. So you're all anonymous. So we won't know who's done what. Okay.
Hi, Karen, can you hear me? It's Peter.
Hello, Peter.
Yeah, I've only just come on right at the tail end of what was being said about the statistics and stuff, so I'm going to sit here and watch the answers.
Peter, just have a guess.
Huh?
Have a guess.
Oh, all right then.
So
Okay.
that's what it is. It's just a case of you know, what you think they are. Those statistics. Oh, I'm getting some answers already here. I can see who's going for the most here. It's quite good, this. We've not tried this before. This is a new one. Yeah. Here we go. Oh, the 52% are coming up from question 1. So 52s, the 73s, the 17s. We've got some 8s, we've got some 12s, we've got some 27s. I'll go through them all, obviously, at the end here. Okay. Once you've all finished with it, just let me know, and I'll if you've all done it, I will I'll bring. So just put your hand up or thumb up if you've done them. Once you've done them. 1, 2. Okay.
It's not letting me submit mine for some reason.
You don't have to submit it. It just comes automatically through. So don't worry about that. It'll just come through. Yeah. Okay. Has Carl done his yet? No. B, done yours? Yeah. Well, right. I think Leslie Ann's done hers, but she was taking copious notes as well. Yeah. Christine, you done now? Anybody still need some time? No.
Can we win £1 million?
I wish. You know, we're not doing millionaire here, mate. We're really not. Yeah. Okay. Right. Last few minutes.
I'll see how you went on at the start. We get told that you were paying out the £1 million to the winner.
Are you trying to say a lot like Jeremy Clarkson? You know, I hope not. Oh, Judith on eggheads. No, she won, didn't she, years ago? Right, okay. So we've just got, it's counting down. It's going to give us we've got we've had 3 minutes at it so far. So, but if everybody else is done now, it looks like I've got answers on absolutely everything now. So I'm going to end the polling. Ta-da! And we hope, have you done yours, Carl? Yeah? 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 Everybody's waving. Yes, good. Right, so I'm going to end the polling, and I'm hoping it's going to give us some figures at the end of it. So fingers crossed. Right, okay, now I'm going to share the results with you. Okay, so can you all see those? All right, I'm just going to let Karen Reagan back in. Okay, right, I'm just unmuting people, I think.
I got them all right.
Yeah, right, okay. Get down right, okay. Right, so let's look at the actual, you know, what was the right answer. Okay, surprisingly enough, the right answers will be shown in orange by the looks of things. Right, that's how it's going to show it. So so everybody can see there. So some people thought it was 52, but how many women aged 16 to 64 were in employment in the UK, which is a good figure to think of actually, because we know it's over half, but it's actually 73% now. So like Katie said, you know, that's actually going up now. So well done all those who did the 73. Okay, in 2019, gender pay gap in the UK for full and part-time workers was, well, I think everybody's got that one. Okay, so everyone's got that one at 17%. How many women held chief executive officer roles in the FTSE 250? Right, and you know, I would have said, I mean, hey, come on, how bad is that? Right, I mean, how bad is it? Okay, now women's trade union membership in the UK was, right, in 2019, 20%, 23%, 27%. So you can see there's not that much difference, right? So with regards to that, but we are going up. And I think the COVID situation has definitely put women's membership up as well. I do apologise because behind my results, I've got Kerry and V, so I'm just moving you and covering Dave and Leslie on for a little bit and try and get in the middle. Okay, hey, we got a little in there with Mel. She's starting them early again. Right, in the CW, women's membership stands at, everybody heard that, the 20%, most people heard that one. Okay, obviously Peter wasn't on, so he might not have heard that one. How many women members hold representative roles? Right, 15.6. Okay, so as Katie said, we've still got a long way to go, and we need to get to the point where it's not just assumed that a CW representative will just be a bloke, or as Katie said, to use the feminist vernacular, the, you know, the what is it, pale male and stale, right? But we don't have any pale males and stales on this call, right, at all. Okay, we've got our dynamic men on this call, which is wonderful, right? And the CW, how many BAME women are members? Apologies, I've missed the N off there, right? And again, 4,114 there. Okay, so right down the middle there. And how many BAME women as CW activists?
45.
Right, 45. Yeah, across the whole of the union. So as Katie said before, you can see that we have got a bit of work to do yet, right? And I think what we'll do now is, anybody got any questions specifically on those actual areas? Jake's just coming on as well from our put your hand up. Yeah, Mel. Right. Do you want to
So
unmute?
it's just a quick one. It would be interesting to see the breakdown of the difference between postal and telecoms. Out of that, to see if there's one constituency that seems to be a bit better at bringing through maybe being people or women, or disabled or whatever it is that we happen to be looking at that point in time.
Karen?
Yeah.
If you look at, Mel, that's a really good point, because if you actually look at our region, the 2 branch secretaries that we've got who are women come from the TFS. And TFS are normally more women involved on the TFS side than the postal. But then again, if you look at some of the branches, they do have a lot more women members.
Yeah, I think. Who else is? Somebody else shaking there, but somebody else wanted to come in there. Yeah.
Emma wants to get in.
Hey, Emma.
You kind of covered it then, Carl, to be honest. I was going to say we can't really congratulate ourselves in telecoms, because I reckon we've probably got more women involved, but I know our branch, over 50% of our members are women, so I was actually quite surprised when Katie said like only kind of 1 in 5 CW members as a whole are women, because ours are like over half. But we're not too bad in our branch. We've got 2 women, 3 fellas as the principal officers, which is not too bad. And I'm treasurer and Hannah's branch sec, so we do better than some branches. But I wouldn't be too quick in celebrating how much better we are than postal in terms of proportionality, to be honest. It's probably just got more female members.
I can see Susie waving. Yep, Susie, do you want to come in? Yoo-hoo.
Yeah, I do. So we're talking about the proportionality of the postal. Well, I can tell you that only 17% of the workforce at Royal Mail are female at the moment, and I got that through a research project I was doing last year with the TUC.
Wow.
So the figure of 20% of women in the CWU, what I want to know is that the CWU as a whole with TFNS and postal, or is that just the Royal Mail? Because I made it that was about 23,800 of the Royal Mail workforce who are women, which means there's about, if it's 20% of postal, then there's about 22,300 women members. So that means we're missing about 1,700 odd, if that makes sense. No, 1,400.
Do you want me to come back? Do you want me to come back?
Oh, yes, please.
Right, so it's actually 20.4% women CW membership, and that's out of our whole membership. It's got nothing to do with Royal Mail.
Okay.
All right, so we've got about 192,000 members approximately that are CW members. Out of that, I'm just looking, well, I haven't had it up as a whole. I can't see it on my report. There's 40,000. We've got 40,000 women members. It's 40,517 members. That was from November 2019. It's in the proportionality report, page 8. On page 9, it breaks it down into constituency. So in the postal constituency, out of all postal members, women account for 19.8%. And in the TFNS, you're quite right, there's more women members than there are in postal. For the TNFS, it's 23.4% women membership. So there's not much in it. And I think a lot of that is, there's been quite a lot of changes. There's been peaks and troughs in the TFNS, and I think that's a lot to do with the industrial change, modernisational change, and changes within organisations where we've seen typical areas where women are employed being decimated and being replaced with other types of work, either offshoring, etc., and stuff like that. We're starting to see that a little bit in Royal Mail when we had mail centre closure programmes where women were predominantly employed. When those mail centres shut, we started to see reductions in women. I know London is particularly bad for retaining women in Royal Mail. I think there's only 12% of women that work in Royal Mail in London. I think it's the lowest area. Don't quote me though. because those were raw mail. I mean, raw mail's figures you can only get out of their end of year annual reports, and sometimes it's a bit hit and miss. POL are terrible for it. TF and TNFS aren't really forthcoming with publishing their diversity data. I think as a trade union movement, we could probably campaign and ask that the employer does that better, particularly not just their diversity data, but publishing pay gaps, not just for gender, but for BAME people, for disabled people, and LGBT, workers that fall under the LGBT plus community. They're pretty poor. We need to put more pressures on them and government so that there's a legal requirement.
Can I just ask as well, you know, the document that you've actually done, is that available on the website? If not, right, could we distribute it to the people who are on tonight, for those people, so people like Susie might be interested in that as well, in the actual figures? Yeah, you
can find it on the website. It's
on the CW website, right? That's probably a better way of doing it, because it's quite a big document. It has actually been sent out to the equality strands and to the regional structures.
I'm just trying to find the LTB
and the branches. It has gone to the branches, but I know that it quite often doesn't get to where, you know, people actually want it. I'm just going to unshare these results then, and then I'll pass back to the chair in a minute when we've got the answer to this.
Karen, can I just give the LTB number if it's handy for people if they want? I mean, I'll share it with you, Karen and Sheila, and maybe you can send it round to the group.
Do you want to pop it? What I'll do is I'll just put it in the chat now.
Okay.
What's the LTB number?
It's 396/20.
396/20. Right, there we go, everybody. So that's in there for you. Okay. So right, so I'm going to pass back to Sheila now, and then we can move on. Thanks for that, Katie, because I think there's some really interesting stats in there as well. So Sheila, over to you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Susie, will you still be wanting to come in at the end, or did you say what you needed to say?
Yeah, I'll come in at the end.
Oh, okay then, thank you. Now we've got Kerry Fleck to come on. Are you ready, Kerry?
Yeah, all good. Hi, listen, thanks very much for the invite to speak this evening. I'm delighted about that. Just before I start, the women's places in our union was sort of work that Lynn Brown had started when we were working with her in the postal department. She's a senior organiser in postal, and it was work that she done along with the other female organisers. So I don't want to claim credit for it was a collective effort. So I don't want to be claiming credit for other people's work. So I'm sort of building on that stuff this evening. I've never done a presentation on Zoom before, so if I'm speaking too fast and my accent is just terrible, somebody has shout at me, and I'll try and slow down a bit. So I'm just going to put my presentation up here and see if it'll share okay. Can everyone see that okay? Yeah? I can't hear anyone. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so a woman's places in the union. So I'm going to just talk about two things very quickly. I know we've only got 10 minutes, but I want to talk about why women should join the CWU. Obviously, women here are all already members and active in the CWU, but I think it's good to refresh yourselves about the reasons why women should be joining the CWU, because this is information we can then use when we're out in the workplace, trying to encourage people to join or trying to encourage women to be active. So I'm going to talk briefly about that as a bit of a refresher, and then I'm going to talk about why and how women should become actively involved in the union. So first up, why women should join CWU. So obviously women's issues and how the union is campaigning and tackling women's issues. So women's pay, and as already mentioned this evening, the gender pay cap still exists, and the CWU are continuing to challenge the social injustices of this pay gap and push for more women to be accepted and promoted in traditionally male occupations. And as we know, women in unionised workplaces earn more than non-unionised workplaces. Another one then is women's health. The CWU recognises that women face different health and safety issues and challenges. The Health and Safety Department offers specific training for female issues and campaigns to raise awareness. And we're all, I'm sure, aware of the period poverty campaign the union has been running of recent years. And then women's training. Every year the CW offers a summer school specifically for female trade unionists Union Learn is open to all, but has helped many women who previously been unable to train gain qualifications because of work and family responsibilities. On the maternity front, the CW have been actively taking part in government consultations on maternity and paternity leave and benefits, with the aim of improving access and length of leave and financial support. The CW will always be able to advise workers on their rights in terms of maternity. Bullying and harassment, the CW recognises that female workers can be particularly vulnerable to this form of abuse, and has trained officers to help workers deal with these issues individually, and has the strength to challenge employers collectively on these issues. And women's work-life balance, which I think is something that's becoming even more important now with issues around COVID. Many women act as primary carer to children or a relative, and this can create additional pressure between home and work. CW helps workers to get the balance they need by campaigning for better understanding by employers and colleagues, and pushing procedures to be put in place to achieve this. We know that some of the workers who are trying to organise now in some of the non-recognised areas are finding it very difficult. Employers are using COVID as a way to undermine flexible working arrangements. So this is much more relevant at the minute, of course. Here's some stats that Kerry has already provided us with. CW membership is male 80%, 20% female. So with only 20% female membership and far fewer female activists and reps compared to our male membership, it's vital to CW success and overall effectiveness that this disproportionate representation is rectified. And that's what proportionality agenda is about. And this is already happening, but we recognise that it's going to take time. Hopefully some of the reasons I've outlined might help you as activists and representatives explain why your female colleagues will be advantaged by joining and becoming active in the CW. So in terms of representation, nearly every CW branch now has a women's officer who acts as a representative for women's issues at branch level and actively supports their female colleagues. Women's officer needs help to make sure that women's issues remain high on the agenda of the National Executive through the Women's Advisory Committee and regional forums. Increasingly, more and more women are now being elected to the NEC. We now have a female president and other females in high, higher roles in the union. CW female representatives also have a voice in national trade unionism through the TUC, and input into both European and international forums. And that's also true in Northern Ireland, where we have women who are very involved in the ICT women's groups, things like that. So advice, support and friendship, and I'm sure this is something you're all familiar with. If a female member has a problem at work, they can always get support, advice and representation if needed from an elected officer. In most cases, we hope that this would be possible to get representation from a female officer if that's appropriate. If a female member has problems outside of work, it is possible for the union to offer support and put the member in touch with professionals who can help. Being an active member offers the opportunity to meet other female members and officers who support the union. Attending meetings and social events gives women at work the opportunity to meet other workers who they would otherwise not come into contact with. And being in the union gives women the chance to discuss and share their work experience with one another and provide support. Then there's new opportunities, of course, by getting involved in a union and becoming a union member. You'll get the chance to an opportunity to influence current local and national policy in the union. Taking advantage of Union Learn courses can enable women to move on in their careers, develop new life skills or pursue new interests. Getting involved in the union doesn't just mean being an elected official. There are lots of other ways of being involved. Helping organise learning events, socials, encouraging other colleagues to join, and just getting generally involved in organising, encouraging more members. You don't have to take on a formal elected role to get involved. More women are needed within the CW and the trade union movement to ensure that the female voice is heard. So now is the time to speak up. So just moving on to the second part then, why should members who are already in the union get actively involved? It makes a big difference to the union when more women get involved. It allows a women's perspective to be heard on workplace issues. It promotes and raises awareness of women's issues and gives women issues a stronger voice in the workplace. You have the chance to support and help colleagues, and you'll get different life experiences and develop unique skills. So new skills, you'll develop new skills, education and training, you can build your confidence. There's a lot of empowerment with getting involved in the union more directly. And there's a sense of accomplishment. And I could talk about that from a personal experience, which I will do in a minute. And of course, then you meet new friends and a greater support network. Involvement in the CW is whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be pigeonholed into certain things. You can try out a range of new roles. You can be involved informally by being a workplace committee member. You can be in a women's committee or union group, and you can be involved in being a women's champion. So a bit more formally then, there's roles locally, IR rep, health and safety rep, ULR rep, and there's deputy positions for all of those. And then obviously there's branch officers position, chair, secretary, women's rep, organiser, lead ULR, health and safety, equality, youth and treasurer. So we know that there's a lot of positions there for branch officers. And one thing I would say is that if you are wanting to get more involved and more active, don't just allow yourself to be pigeonholed into maybe just being a women's officer or an equality rep. I mean, those are very important roles, and they shouldn't be neglected. But if you are interested in some of those other roles, they tend to be in some sectors populated by men on many occasions. If you're interested in them, stick your oar in and try and get involved. There's plenty of training available, and plenty of support out there. No one ever become a union rep knew everything when they set out to do it, you know. So if you're interested, get involved. It's very rewarding to do some of those roles. It's how I got involved in the trade union movement. I worked as a classroom assistant many years ago, and our rep left employment, and the girls who were union members decided I should be the rep just because my dad was a union rep. I had no idea what I was doing. I was absolutely thrown in the deep end. There was a redundancy situation came up about 2 weeks after I was in the role. But I have to say, getting involved led me to be very involved in the branch, in the union, at union conferences, in youth movement, in the women's movement. I got involved in the Belfast Trades Council. I'm now vice president of it. And then I ended up, of course, getting a job in the CW that I've been doing for 14 years. And I've never looked back. And I honestly think it was because I became a workplace rep, and it helped me build confidence, and I found much more respect in the workplace and confidence in myself. So yeah, I would encourage people to get involved in as much as you can if you can find the time. And then just to touch on education and training, of course, there's a wide range of non-union courses if you want to expand your own personal education. And there's plenty of training for those union courses or those union roles you might want to do. So whether you're a union activist or in a formal role, there are courses for you to gain the skills and confidence, and there's a mentoring program available. So just a quote from Angela Davis, lifting as we climb. And because of my union activity, I had the privilege of meeting her a couple of years ago when she was in Belfast, and I gave a speech in front of her, and it was one of the best things I've ever done. So those sorts of experiences are out there if you're willing to grab them. So that's me. Just the last couple of quick comments from me. Over the years, I've been involved in a number of different unions as an activist and involved in the Trades Council, and I think the CW is playing a very leading role with its proportionality agenda in comparison to other unions. I think it demonstrates that the CW is willing to accept that we still have a problem, we still have a road to travel in terms of getting more women involved, and I think it's focusing our attention on what still needs to be done. And I think there's a tendency in some unions for women's issues just to be sidelined off to the Women's Committee or the Equality Committee when they come up with an executive, you know, oh, that's an issue for the Women's Committee, and then, you know, sort of fielded out and forgotten about. And it's good to see the CW is very much more proactive than that, and is trying its best not to let that happen. And if we accept that the bigger role of the trade union movement is about challenging inequality in society, then women's issues have to be front and centre. I love the quote, you know, women hold up half the sky. So we can't create equality without women's issues being front and centre, and not like a sideline. So I encourage everyone to get more involved and more organised. And if you need any help from us in the organising department in doing that, I have some materials there about recruiting women members and encouraging women's members. There's plenty of materials there. So you can get in touch with me anytime, and I'll see what help I can provide. So that's me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kerry. Now, would it be okay to share your slides, Kerry? If you send them to myself or Karen, we'll post them out.
I'll forward it on to you, Sheila, after. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Right, we have got a couple of people. Susie wants to come in, Karen Regan, and Tony's put something in the chat, but he's not really got anything to add. Mel, did you want to come in?
I can come in. I put it in the chat anyway, and I know most of you know me. You've heard me talk at conference about these kind of things because it's my pet hate. And I've said it time and time and time again. People generally come through in the union because they happen to know somebody in the union, whether it's they've been represented or they became pals with a rep, and that's how you know they kind of come through. There is a lot of people, and I mean, like Leslie Ann will be one of the ones that'll be able to confirm that I've said this even to herself when she comes in. You know, as a female, you don't want a branch to go, oh, you're a woman, you can tick a box for us, and that's it. You know, if you want to become a women's officer and you want to push that side, great, but that needs to be your choice. The problem that you get is there's a lot of people won't want to take on a role because they don't know what's involved. They can't find necessarily a kind of, you know, guideline. They can look through the constitution, but as a new rep, or if you're wanting to come through, the last thing you want to do is sit down with a full constitution, try and whittle out that one bit that's specific to where you might happen to have an interest. So a lot of us, if we do take on a role, we kind of get plunged in at the deep end. I think if there was something, and I've said it before, we don't get handed a handbook of going, right, you're a member now, so this is as a member, you should come onto the committee, or, you know, you should be doing this, or if you want to become more active, this is how you go about it. And we don't get that. So there needs to be something more of, you know, have you thought about coming onto the committee? What does that actually mean to be a committee member within your branch? Have you thought about, or are you passionate about, or do you identify within any of these areas? You know, would you like a bit more involvement with that? Through the years, my last women's officer, my branch currently doesn't have a women's officer. Actually, I'm telling you a lie, it's not the last one, but the one before it. I forwarded on numerous women to her and said, these people are interested in becoming more active. But she constantly held the branch women's committee meetings during working time, like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But we've got people that work 24/7, so you're never going to keep everybody happy. She never changed it ever. And basically, if I brought Andy through, they just got blanked. They never heard anything back after that. See, it's about having that, you know, what's expected of you. So if you were to come through as a female and wanted to come through as a women's officer, what are you going to do? Because I know for a fact, if I said to half the branches, what would you expect your women's officer to do? They'll go, I deal with women's stuff. And that's it. They're not going to define, okay, so how do you do that? And why would you go to the women's officer over an IR rep? Because an IR rep could also deal with that. So it's about defining some of the roles a bit more, not just necessarily women's, but just in general.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Right, I'm going to let Susie come in, and then Karen Regan, and then obviously we've got Emma, Karen Kendrick, and Carl. Okay, so Susie.
I'm quite interested in all this because I did a TUC Women in Leadership course last year, and we had to investigate our own unions to see how well they were representative of women. So I did a survey in my workplace, and one of the questions was, have you ever thought of being more active in your union, as in going on a march, being a rep, just anything really, just a contribution really. I think I had 32 responses, and out of those responses, 7 men said yes, and a total of 0 women said yes. So there's obviously a massive gap. I'm on phone, mate. I'll see you in a minute. Yeah, I'm walking. Sorry, I'm on my way to football training. Yeah, so hang on, I'm busy. Go on. Yeah, so you know, with that obviously says to us that women just don't see themselves as active people in the union. I mean, I'm in there, and I think I do a pretty good job of representing women and the office, but we need to sort of capture these women and find out what it is that they don't want to do, or perhaps send them out on union courses, because I know since I've been a union rep, it's brought me forward. What else do I want to say? She put me off now. Yeah, that's enough. Thanks.
Okay, Karen Regan, would you like to say? And then Emma, and then I'll put the questions to Katie and Kerry, and then I'll take in Karen, Carl, and Dave and Vera.
Yeah, Susie hit the nail on the head then. She said women don't see themselves as reps. I mean, we've had this same thing for years. Obstacles that prevent women are generally that they see them, they're too busy in the home. They still take on the percentage of care and responsibilities within the home. So you've got to factor that in, the obstacles they place around themselves, and also their own mindset that doesn't think that they can step outside that box. Within Royal Mail, the statistics showed just before, we are vastly outnumbered by our male counterparts. Well, let me tell you, that doesn't stop those who want to, because I certainly don't feel like I'm outnumbered. In fact, I think when I'm around, some of the fellas think that they're outnumbered. So, but I think it's a general progression of how we change. We're not going to see any changes unless we drop them shackles, and that's going to take like evolution. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take progress, and I think we're going to be banging our heads on the brick walls to bring women through, and I think that's all I've got to say about that. Thank you, Sheila.
Emma?
Thanks, Sheila. I suppose it's more of a comment than a question, really, but just with Karen saying what can we do to remove the barriers, I think we've actually started, due to COVID-19, a lot of what we thought wasn't possible has had to be possible. And I hope, as much as we need to get back to meeting in person and training in person and everything, I understand people's point of views on that. I hope we can go forward with more blended approach to that, because I do think it's definitely allowed more women to get involved. I've got involved with stuff I wouldn't normally have been able to, purely because I can do it from home. So I just hope we take that forward. And just to mention as well, I don't know if any of you have read it already, but there's a report out on the GMB and proportionality, and that's very interesting reading if any of you want to have a look at it. I can only speak from my own kind of experience of the union, but I've never really felt belittled. I've always felt encouraged. So I think Susie touched on it there. It's maybe getting people involved in something in quite a small way that they feel able to, and then once they see that we're not male, stale and pale, hopefully, they might want to get a little bit more involved still. But it's kind of, once you're involved, I personally think the CWU is quite inclusive. But it's just getting people over that initial hurdle, like you say, Susie. Thanks.
Yes. Katie and Kerry, have you got anything to add?
Yeah.
Katie?
Do you want to go first? Okay, right. So, yeah, we've all made some really interesting points, but I think, and they're all very valid, but I think as a union, we all need to change. The only way that we're going to get more women through is by engaging with them women. Understand, like I said in my piece, we need to go into workplaces and start picking up some of these issues. Women will get involved if they start to see change being created. So if you're going in there and they're highlighting small things like, you know, there's no bins, sanitary bins in the toilet, well, that's an easy fix, that's a win. That's showing women that actually their voice means something. And let's face it, as women, I don't know about you, but indoors I might as well talk to the wall 90% of the time. So it's really refreshing to be involved in a trade union that wants to listen to my voice and wants to, like you're all listening now, you value my opinion. It's refreshing, it's nice. And there'll be women members in the workplace that are dying to speak out, to speak about the issues that are affecting them. And we need to get in there. We need to start dealing with those issues. And that's progressive where people start coming through. When they know their voice means something, then you can start approaching them and saying to them, do you want to get more involved in trade union activities? We'd all like to go out there and go into the workplace and start cherry picking people and thinking, right, you're LGBT plus, let me go in, let me try and convince you how great this union is and why we need you. Some will come through that way, but we may not retain them because we're cherry picking, we're going out there. That's not a democratic way to do it. How we do it is going in, holding workplace discussions with our members. It's what we do it day in, day out. We're good at what we do. We've got this. In terms of courses for lay members, I know Kate's very keen in getting some courses sorted so we can go into our workplaces and start having like little 20-minute sort of sessions with lay members to just give them a flavour of our education programme. And once they get on board, yes, that is an encouraging way to get more active is through our education programme. And in terms of the obstacles, well, you know, let's face it, we don't put positive action in. The obstacles around childcare and domestic care, look at the times of when we have our meetings. Look at the locations of our meetings. All right, we've addressed a bit of that through COVID because it's online. But there's things, small things that we still need to do that are still being hurdles, that they're not big deals. They're not. It's just about having that, and this is where we need the men in our union to start recognising and start helping us. Do you know what I mean? It's all very well going into conference and putting your hand up and voting for a policy on proportionality, but let's go back and actually do something. Let's have deeds, not words. Sorry, I'm getting a bit passionate.
I'm just a bit conscious of time. Kerry?
Should have let Katie go after me. That was a good way to wrap up. You know, it was just, on the issue of roles and that kind of stuff that Mel was raising. We produced an organising guide for reps in the postal organising team a few years ago. It was circulated, I think, only at the postal conference, but it's still there and it's relevant to anyone. It gives sort of a basic idea about basic organising tactics and trying to recruit people and things like, you know, getting a win on bins and how that makes a union relevant. And that what we were finding was reps aren't really confident in trying to sell the union to people in a lot of places, certainly not trying to pick up women members, sort of not good at it. So it was like a guide dealing with, you know, common objections to joining. But within that booklet is a list of all the different roles, formal and informal, you can get involved in the union, and also what's involved in those roles. So I'll send a copy of that to Sheila as well, but maybe you could pull some of that out and build on it and get it out around the branches or whatever way you can find to use that and adapt it. And I'm happy to help adapt that for the region for what you're doing if you want to do that. And just on it, yeah, look, whenever I first became a rep, I was about 19 or 20 in a different union. I was 300 deep in. I was terrified of representing anybody, terrified. I didn't know what I was doing. And when I emailed the branch secretary to inform her I'd been elected as a rep, the reply I got was, "Good for you. Hope you don't think you're getting on the branch committee." I didn't even know what a branch committee was, and I was a female branch secretary who was immediate response was to try and block me. So we know these experiences exist, but what changed it for me was going to conference and meeting other people. And I think what we've got to do is build those networks and informal networks using Zoom so that people can get together and say, "Look, I'm having this problem," and share tactics and share ways around these barriers and all that. And that's what you're obviously trying to do here with this space you've created. So that's great. Yeah, if I can be of any use in some of these things, please let me know. I'll type my email and my phone number into the chat here.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that, Kerry. Now, I've got Karen, Carl, Dave and Vera who all want to come in. Now, for time, just follow each other, and if that's okay. Karen?
Yeah, I just wanted to come in on, again, sort of Kerry sort of covered it a lot there, but you know what Mel said about not knowing what you're coming into. And I think in the Northwest, I mean, we had some great work done by our young workers. They actually came up with like a job description and stuff like that as well, because I think it's going to be more important now under redesign that regions do their own, right? Because as much as we'll have some basic stuff there that will be pertinent for everybody, I think you're right, you know, we do have to adapt them. I mean, I think things like what we're doing here is going to build into something that we're probably going to do for the women's and the equality and, you know, the whole equality strand for the Northwest. So I just wanted to say, I think it should be a work in progress at the moment, but yeah, we've got what Kerry's got there that we can build on. And I think if we take that, right, look in each, you know, on our own regions, what can we do to actually improve those, to span out, you know, what the roles involve, but not be too detailed. You have got to make it your own role, but you have got to, you know, sort of have some basics. And I totally agree with that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks. Just want to say this has been excellent. I'm really sorry. I've been getting distracted because I've had one MP ringing me about the Count Me In campaign. I've been trying to chase him up all day and he rings me right in the middle of this. But this has been an excellent event. I've really enjoyed it. And I've just wondered to say to Katie, Kerry, I think what we need to do is carry out a proportionality report on headquarters as well. Just 1 minute, so it's a bit noisy. Just to carry out one at headquarters, because I've just been writing it all down. And if you look at policy advisors, and if you look at national officers, I think we've only got 2 women national officers. Not many policy advisors around either. Thank God that Katie got the job before. There'd be no women national officers in central services. So, you know, we can look at branches, but we have to look at as leaders of this union. We need to look at ourselves as well. But I think as a region, under redesign, we've really been making strides to make the region reflect the membership across the Northwest. And I think we're doing pretty well. I mean, we've got 2 regional officers who are women, and trust me, I know it was in the rules that was introduced, but we had it beforehand. And no disrespect, I think somebody made a point about don't be pigeonholed, and I think that's really, really important, because though Emma's the regional financial officer, I say this to her all the time, she's much more than that as far as we're concerned in the region, and takes leads on many issues like mental health network and so on. And then with Karen isn't just the assistant regional secretary. Karen is basically like a regional secretary, and we all work to Dave, who is our regional chair. So I think it's really important you don't get pigeonholed, and I think that's the problem with our union sometimes. We tick boxes. We've got a woman's officer, we've got a young worker, we've got a BAME officer, and that's it. And then that's what we want. We don't encourage them to do anything else. We don't encourage them to go further. And I'm hoping, from a regional perspective, redesign will address some of that. And that, like for instance, Peter, who's on this call, who's the regional BAME officer, I'm hoping he's going to do a lot more and then just be the BAME officer, which is an important role, but to get more involved, whether that's with the TUC, whether that's with the Labour Party, and whether that's with the union as well. So, but I'll finish off and just say, honestly, thank you to Kerry and Katie. I really enjoyed it, and thank you to Sheila and Karen for setting this up.
Dave?
Thanks, Sheila. Yeah, just to echo what Carl said as well, thanks for tonight. It's been a brilliant event. I'm going to try and articulate this as best I can. Whether I'll make a decent job of it, I don't know. But it strikes me we have this vicious circle, right? And that vicious circle is perpetuated by the fact that the blokes in our male-dominated trade union aren't always honest, frankly, right? Dave Ward will tell you that he thinks it's going to be a great idea that we eventually have a woman general secretary, but I'll tell you now, it won't be at his expense, right? And without being rude to Carl will tell you that it'd be great for us to have a woman as a regional secretary, but it won't be at his expense. And if somebody stands against me as the branch secretary of my branch and it's a woman, you know what? I'm going to do an election campaign and I'm going to try and beat her. Right, so I think Katie touched on it earlier, you know, we go to conference and we all put our hands up and that type of stuff. Frankly, a lot of the time it's disingenuous. So how that circle gets broken, I suppose, and I ain't got the answers, by the way, but that circle is going to have to be broken by you, the women activists, getting your heads together, getting the policies that you need, and somehow ramming it through that male-dominated annual conference that we have as well. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that any of that is going to be easy, but the male-dominated trade union, you lot are going to have to get your head together and you're going to have to come and take it off them. I don't know if I articulated that as well as I could, but just while it was in my head.
Thank you, Dave, you did. And then I've got Vera. Vera wanted to say something. Vera, are you on mute? Vera?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Right, sorry. Just following on from briefly what Dave said, I can go back many years when I first started going down the Elstead, and I'd walk in and they all automatically thought I came from BT, because you never had any women from the postal side going on a course all them years ago down to the Elstead. And they used to come up and say, oh, you're BT. And they used to look at me as though I was an alien when I used to say, no, I'm from the postal. And in a lot of respects, a lot of branches haven't changed on that. It's a terrible thing to say, but they haven't. And exactly what Dave says happens, it does happen, and it's still happening. And I think with the redesign, we've got to go back to the branches, and we've got to get together collectively as women and get something put in them branches. I've never been one for reserved seats. I got to where I got to under my own steam and on my own merits. But I don't feel that we've moved very far with branch secretaries, women branch secretaries in the postal side. We've just lost another one. So I feel we're going downhill and not going uphill. So I think we've got to look at, as women, and maybe put it to conference to get some new rules in, that something's got to be put in there where women have a chance of getting in on those committees, that they don't have male, pale and stale campaigns going on to stop them from getting in because they don't, the rest of them don't want to be challenged. So I think we really need to get our heads together and put something in there that you've got a fighting chance, if you like, because it says, we've got committees now where we say, well, one of them has to be 2 women, or you have to have 2 women on, or something like that. Well, maybe we need to start there. So they've got to have them in the branches. And then these women need to get on that platform and have a voice and really make them voices shout, and then encourage other women to come forward. Another thing I wanted to say, and I'm not criticising the slides or anything, but just one thing, we haven't got women's advisories anymore. And it was on one of them slides. So perhaps it needs taking out because we haven't got the women's advisory anymore. And as for health and safety with women, well, the health and safety department, I'm sorry, I feel it lets women down in the CW. And I know where Katie's going to be thinking, I know where V's going to come from. And yeah, it is the menopause and it is other things as well. They've played around, they've messed around with it, but they've never took it by the horns. They've never engaged with Royal Mail to try and do, or anybody else to try and do anything with it. And I think that needs to start stopping now, because again, they need to step up to the plate and say, oh, well, we're for women on health and safety and health in that place for women. Well, they need to start and put some action in where their voice is. Okay, I've had me rant.
Okay, thank you for that, Vera. Now, I think because of time, I'm going to have to close it now. But thank you to everyone that said their piece, and thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you found it interesting, and a special thank you to Katie and Kerry for the work they've done for us and the wider the CWU. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time for the final instalment and a look at leadership in women. See you then. Thank you.
Bye. Got to put it off. Wait for Karen and Jake to drop off. Is Karen gone?
Is it all on then?
Yeah, just say.
So it's all on.
Jake, just waiting for you to sign off so I can have a quick chat with Sheila. Oops, I know what I need to do. Recording, stop it.